So today's Walk Yourself Out the Front Door marketing mishap is brought to you by Bud Light. We've been talking a lot about this over the past week. It's obviously created quite an uproar, and I want to talk about this for a few different reasons, and it's been kind of a theme in our videos for the last few months about authenticity and how important being true to your brand is in the digital world, because we crave humility and connection more than ever. And when you see a brand that's not consistent or is trying to bring in socially politically correct themes that you don't agree with, it bites you in the ass.
It's like a top-down MBA approach to, we know what the customers should be doing, so we're gonna push down something on you as opposed to hear what they want.
Force feed, and that's exactly what happened. And it there's a lot of people that are pissed off. And not just kind of like that typical Bud Light customer, and they've just really screwed up. So let's go into it, because we've had some really interesting conversations about it, and I think that we would like to open it up to see what other people think. But for those who don't know, so Bud Light did a paid partnership with Dylan Mulvaney, who is a transgender content creator and activist. So typically those kinds of engagements, and obviously I don't know the details, but you pay to get an in-feed post, and it's very collaborative. So you outline as a client, what you want to achieve in that post, but as a content creator, they take their own kind of unique spin on it so that it matches and fits with their audience and their content style. So the main point of this video was, what looks like a contest that's centered around March Madness. And they did the partnership in celebration for Mulvaney's 365 days of celebrating his womanhood. And I make that face because it was in an Audrey Hepburn dress, and it was just so bad on so many levels.
The dress, didn't it look like it's from Breakfast at Tiffany's, right?
It is.
And that movie was about a woman being abused.
But
right?
Yeah, a male abuser and her hiding from an abuser. But there's just I don't even know where to start. From the first point is she doesn't know what March Madness is. She says that the best gift that Bud Light could have given her for 365 days of womanhood is a 6-pack of beer. Mm-hmm. And they put her face on the 6-pack as if that's the best way to celebrate her womanhood. Doesn't know what March Madness is in an Audrey Hepburn outfit, which is, again, an icon for a woman who escapes a male abuser.
And so people have to look at this from the perspective of not, I went to NYU and I was surrounded by a bunch of kind of educated elites, and you have to think of, you have somebody who's a blue collar worker who's your main customer who drinks beer. That might be the wrong, but how do you explain that somebody in a marketing department thought it was the right thing to put somebody who didn't like basketball, who probably doesn't drink beer, and who's not really representative of what they're trying to do? How does that decision get executed to such negative effects?
So I can't even imagine that's the worst part about working with big companies is the amount of opinions you have to go through to get the approval. And people were like, yeah, let's get this out there.
No, but I know why that happened, because corporate culture has turned into one of compliance rather than courage.
Yeah.
And we went to that conference in New York that had a bunch of marketing, the Daily whatever. Marketing Brew. And I was struck by how lemming-like the thinking was. It was like falling over yourself to be politically correct, as opposed to the old days of agency work or marketing where you're a dynamic thinker that's doing stuff. It just seemed they all seem to be lemmings reinforcing themselves. So if you're in a corporate environment where people are scared to say something unpopular, I can easily see how it goes up the chain.
But my counter to that is, I actually think that campaign hindered the trans community more than it helped it, because it actually it was so badly done, and it puts this kind of transgender dialogue at the center of it that everyone is just shitting on this whole campaign. Nobody, and to your point about the target market persona, they completely lost focus on who their customer is. Like the VP of marketing comes out and she's like, we're trying to get a younger base. We're trying to get more women. We wanted, like, we've been really fratty, but we want to go younger. Like fratty's the legal age to drink in the United States.
Yeah.
So
It's almost like the tobacco company trying to brand children
Like,
before they
what?
smoke.
But and that, like, by doing something that was so off brand and actually standing for nothing, they made a really negative conversation about something that they were trying to be politically correct or empowering about. And it's just so bad. And we've also
but you know what? It shows kind of the corruption of influencer and political advocacy, because Dylan Mulvaney as an influencer gets notoriety by being excessive, not by being necessarily deep, right? And so you kind of went to the most over the top transgender person in North America, right? If you wanted to build inclusivity in your brand and say, hey, a Bud Light is for everybody. Doesn't matter who you sleep with, doesn't matter who you like, doesn't matter where you were born. You could have a cool video, get some influencers that show that, hey, somebody who's undergone that transgender surgery still enjoys a Bud Light after work. But this just seemed to make a mockery of the beer.
It did.
The target market persona, and actually what they were trying to do. It was such a fail.
They did absolutely nothing. And the point too is, like, even Dylan's audience, like, who follows her, the content she created is making fun of drinking beer during a sports game. So who in her audience, if that's the content that they support, if she's like, I don't even know what March Madness is, and her probably her followers are also like not big into March Madness. So what was the point of the, like, no one is watching this and being like, hey, you know, I don't know what March Madness is. And, you know, I've never thought about drinking beer, but now I'm going to start. Mm-hmm. Like the whole video was making fun of that culture. And there's so many things to talk about, but what really grinds my gears is the last campaign they did was all about praising Texas and keeping Texas, and everything about that message, that vision that comes to mind is so anti Dylan Mulvaney that it just shows that you stand for nothing.
No, and but it's dissonant messaging, because if you go to Texas and say, hey, we love that you guys work on a ranch, you work hard, like you covered in dust,
pro-guns,
right?
Anti-abortion,
like you drink a beer at the end of the day because it's American, it's cheap, it's traditional, it's me. And then on the other hand, you bring in an influencer who nobody in your target market really follows,
making fun of a major
making
sports.
fun of what they love.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like, why? Like, you set yourself up for this. Like, you can't have the campaign before having like a Spanish American gentleman on the front of your can with the Texas Longhorns, praising Texas, praising the Mexican community that's within Texas, and then saying the next campaign we're making fun of 365 days of womanhood by pretending we don't know what March Madness is. It's so bad. And
but it's actually very insulting, because
Yeah.
when you look at it, her being dressed up as Audrey Hepburn from Breakfast at Tiffany's, that was an abused woman. So why isn't it okay for somebody who was a man to then dress up as an abused woman for Women's Day or to celebrate womanhood, and then shit on sports enthusiasts who buy Bud Lights at March Madness? I don't understand how it got there, how somebody
Or
thought
why
that was
it got
smart.
there.
There should be a petition to have the CEO fired, because he's destroyed hundreds of millions of dollars.
The brand is killed. Well, and that's like, I think, and also a really important point as well, that so before, because I also want to kind of get into like what the experience for Bud Light and bars will look like moving forward.
Right. That's powerful.
But the reason why they wanted to get into this is that the brand is on a decline. And I kind of like, I want to kind of go into 2 points on this. Like, the first is your brand is on the decline because the demand for beer has gone down, in the sense that we don't crack open, like most people aren't laborers anymore. Like we're in a digital economy. Like most people are plugged in, and you're not cracking open a can at 3 p.m. and be able to get kind of tipsy on the job. And
the demographic is switching.
It's switching,
right?
And we're healthier,
Yeah.
right? Like most people are not drinking a heavy carb beer, and that's why you're seeing a lot of like low carb beers or low calorie beers. We've become healthier. But for those that love Bud Light, they should be going just all in on Bud Light instead of trying to now please everyone, because effectively you've pleased nobody. But also the kind of the experience that they've now created with beer culture. Like they've destroyed their brand. Like think about what that experience, like for the reality is the majority of the beer drinkers are men. And now whenever groups of men get together, because that's typically when they drink beer, any guy that goes to order a Bud Light is going to be made fun of at the table, because it's just easy to create light jokes.
People are going to troll and make an issue, and they shouldn't. But as a marketer, you can't disengage yourself from the reality of your customer.
Yeah.
And so your customer might be in a small town bar with a bunch of guys who play pickup hockey or football on the weekend, or they're just, and so there was a lack of thinking of what's the follow-on consequence of associating your brand in this way to a group of 8 guys who are getting a beer after a baseball game.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, that I was disappointed by what Bud Light did, because there's a way to create the dialogue and to bring people into acceptance, and it takes time, especially when people are like have heavy things like religion and cultural norms, like you're talking about in the Deep South. But to force it in their face makes it a joke, and they have to be aware that they made it a joke, and like that's what it actually hurts. It hurts the trans community more.
It's almost like they deliberately sought controversy. And I don't know why a beer brand needs to embrace controversy.
But and one that would never end well. But even to like, you know what? If their mandate is to get more women, they have a great seltzer. Keep selling the seltzer.
Kills it, yeah.
And do a really great influencer campaign where I'm completely brand loyal to your seltzer, so that when I go to the liquor store and I'm picking up, I'm also getting a pack for my male partner of the same brand, because I've become brand loyal. So it's not force a drink down my throat that I don't drink. And the women that do drink Bud Light or Budweiser, they drink it because it's an iconic brand. And it's probably the brand that their dad drank, right? There is generational differences and gaps. And when my mom loves Corona, like my mom will always get a bottle of Corona, but Corona hasn't tried to be anything other than Corona. And that's great for my mom, and that works for her. And the Bud Light seltzer, probably the majority of their customer base is women, and that's a great way to get more women buying your brand if you make it more accessible.
That's a fabulous point. And just imagine in that company, the product developers who I've had Bud Seltzer, and it's actually
great.
It's very good. It's
very
better
good
than the other ones.
Yeah, but their packaging can be better though.
It could be better.
It could be better.
But I'm saying from a product, the product people at Bud have done a great job.
Yes.
Their marketing.
Put a coupon in the box and say, when you buy a pack of seltzer, you get $6 off the regular Bud Light pack.
Bud Light, yeah.
I still can't get over when she said we want to make the brand younger. It's too fratty. I'm like, you literally, the drinking age in the United States is 21.
Yeah.
Like, how much younger do you want to go? Like, what?
But even saying it's too fratty is a little pejorative.
So pejorative.
Fratty is not necessarily age. Fratty it's a pejorative against males. And so then she goes gets, this transgender person to make fun of the frat guys that buy the beer and go to March Madness.
But you know what the best part of it is that the pejorativeness of fratty is actually capturing alcohol is a social, it's a drug. It's a social drug. It's a social lubricant. And you tend to do that in groups. And men tend to drink beer. And when men are in a group, they're a frat. And
a fraternity of shared interested individuals, but it
buying
goes back
a bunch of beer.
But it goes back to your point again. There's a shared group of 6 males. They go to a bar. I'm sure there were guys who liked Bud Light. But
Yeah.
subconsciously, they're not even going to order it
Ever again.
ever just
Ever
because
again.
of the possibility that somebody
Makes fun of
will
them.
chirp them.
Yes.
And so
But-
you'll never be able to track the losses.
But you also know what's hilarious about the fratty point? You know when I've never seen more beer cans in my life?
At a frat party.
Was at a frat party.
Yeah.
So
Kegs,
kegs,
keggers, beer.
lots of cans,
And-
more cans you could ever
No,
need.
And that's how you brand somebody early so they consume your beer for the rest of their life. But you want to say less fratty and more what?
Well, we just want to sell more, so we're going to stop selling to the only person that buys our beer right now. But also, the best part is, Red Bull built their their biggest marketing strategy was to be at big frat parties in universities all over North America, so that young people were always drinking Red Bulls when they were going out. Worked for Red Bull. It could probably work for you if you did it right.
Oh, it worked for Bud Light because that's what they did before. But
Yeah.
but what's happened is you've seen a wholesale shift in leadership in these big corporations that are now promoting people who think that from their ivory tower they can force feed political correctness, and they're killing shareholder value. And I'm surprised there's not a shareholder petition out there to remove the CEO, who should never be hired again if he approved it.
Yeah.
And
And the VP of marketing, who's
well, that goes without saying.
Right.
Like, should just be fired. But the problem is, and we were talking about it before we went on air, is in the past when a company made a mistake and they kind of they did damage to their loyal brand, they would come out and
apologize or own
right?
it. Yeah.
It's a learning opportunity. They're doubling down, but you can just see in the glassy eyes of the VP of marketing, they're not really interested in facts. They're just interested in saying nonsense.
And that's what actually also really pisses me off too, is like, they're not just like, hey, you know what? We missed the mark on this one. And even from the perspective of, you actually created a really negative conversation around transgender. Like even at that point, because the video is really bad for the brand.
Dylan is making fun of the Budweiser customer.
Yes.
It's that bad.
Yes.
You actually went
but
to an
he's
influencer
also
who
making
made
fun of Budweiser.
Yeah.
Like, they're celebrating my 365 days of womanhood. Like, if Budweiser actually wanted to do that, they could do something like, they could make like a diamond tennis necklace, a tennis bracelet for her out of like a Bud Light can shapes. Like do something like for 365 days of womanhood. I'm gonna crack this can at a 5-star spa that they sent me to. Like, do something that like captures that line. Like, it actually is like, you're doing one of the most male
Dylan
things.
should have been doing Bud Seltzer.
Yeah.
Like, that would have just been, that could have been a beautiful, because it would have been shared on social medias. A lot of females like Dylan, right? But in what boardroom? I just want to be in the boardroom where this discussion was had. And I know that 95% of the people in the boardroom thought this was ridiculous. Nobody had the courage to say anything. And so if you're a marketer, you have a duty to protect your company's client base.
Yeah.
This is the biggest fall on your face moment I've seen in decades.
I would even go further than marketing. I think that this is just for businesses, period. Like it's time to speak up and get out of the dumbness. You need to speak to the person that buys. And we don't need to make it political. We don't need to talk about bigger issues. Like, just sell your product really well to the people that buy it.
Yeah, like, why do you need controversy thrown into your brand? It's kind of like having an influencer who's strong pro-life or pro-choice, and then bring them into your beer brand. Why would you polarize everything unless it's a very deliberate decision to get more clients on your side? I don't understand.
I just on a pro cons basis, I wouldn't think that works.
I actually don't want to support Bud because of how dumb it was. Like, like, unless they fire everybody, if they don't take responsibility, even though I like the seltzer. So it's actually kind of, I'll never drink their beer again because it's so bad, but I liked their seltzer.
Yeah, seltzer was great.
If you guys want to rebuild your brand and rebuild your client base, I'd hire Camille to do your Bud Light seltzer program because the product is amazing, and good product is the first step. You need a whole new branding and marketing team, though, boys.
I think they should sell their formula.
It was.
I don't know if I can help.
It's too much.
I think it's too much. I actually think that that's actually the note.
They should stop making beer, and they should just go all in on seltzer after this.
I think that this is kind of the main point though of this video is that these decisions are serious, and you have to take like your brand and its credibility and its reputation is everything, and it's like it can take a lifetime to build it up, and it can take one decision to kill it. And they really should have taken their brand seriously, and that's why I actually think it's better for those who have an agency, are working with marketing to take that decision really seriously, because it's everything for a business and for a brand, and you got to make sure you're working with the best, because they could destroy your brand.
Very true.
What a brand.